Good morning, Louise,
Morning, Rob.
and good morning to everybody who's either watching this episode of God is Supernatural or you're listening to it on UGN Jams. Our our guiding verse is 1 Corinthians 2:4. My message and my preaching were not with wise or persuasive words, but with a demonstration of the Spirit's power, so that your faith might not rest on human wisdom, but on God's power. That's the way that God has ordained it. That's the way that the kingdom's going to grow. And we are here to encourage you to believe that and to step into it. So last time, Louise, we were talking about signs of revival,
Yeah,
and we had that amazing testimony of you guys. You're out on the streets doing street ministry in the evening, and there was a projection of God's power onto a guy 30 feet away who received healing, who we weren't praying for, but he recognized it and called you guys over, which is amazing, isn't it?
yeah, kind of real faith building. It's interesting, since that week, our team continues to grow. So it's not just building my faith, I think it's building the church's faith, hearing the testimonies too.
Yeah, well, it was amazing. For those who don't know, we're part of the Vineyard, and we've been at the Vineyard Leaders Gathering. I've been telling everybody about that, Louise. It was such a upbuilding testimony. So yeah, so we spoke about that and some other signs of revival, and then we came into the following Sunday, which we haven't yet spoken about, on the 21st of April, and that was another. You weren't there because you were doing.
Unfortunately, I missed out. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was another very interesting and faith building experience. We were in worship, and we were coming to the end of worship, and towards the end of worship, as literally as the band were winding down and coming into land, there was an outbreak of shouting in. We have two rooms where where we meet, and there was an outbreak of shouting in one of the rooms, which could be heard all the way into our main room. Um, and my wife was on worship, and she said she could see the lady shouting and yelling and jumping around and flinging her arms around and flailing around, which is not usual, is it? Just to have that suddenly occurring. And I gave the heads up to the band leader to continue worshiping. Let's worship, because recognition is honor, and I'm sure we've all been in too many situations where the Holy Spirit is moving and he's active, but we ignore him and we just carry on with our own agenda. Recognize that?
Yeah, sticking to the running order.
Yeah, sticking to the running order. And I thought I'm done with that, because that is quenching the Holy Spirit. So we
Yeah.
allowed the worship to continue, and when we had some feedback in one of our groups in the week, and one of the guys said, I said, could you hear all the shouting? And he said, I could. I enjoyed it. It was good to hear the joy coming. So so
Yeah.
we allowed that, and some people were praying with her. So ministry kind of continued, and that happened, and then have then come to, then we kind of continue with the rest of the meeting, but it just felt pregnant with I don't know, just a pregnant atmosphere. And then at the end, um, three things really, no, or three or four things. A lady came up to me and she was just bubbling over with the service and with the sense that God had really been speaking to her. I mean, and she's a lady that's been on a journey of faith. I think has some kind of Christian background, um, but this has definitely been a journey of faith, and she looks a different person um, to what she looked like, I don't know, 6 months ago, 7 months ago. But then I also spoke to this lady who had been shouting, and in the prayer time at the end, one of the other ladies had prayed for her and given a word for her about financial blessing, and she shared that she hadn't been praying for any financial blessing. I mean, she's taken on a new job which gives her better hours, and that's less. She gets paid less for that. So she took that on board, and you can just add more to that in a moment. But
Yeah.
I then asked her, so what were you experiencing in the worship? And she said the Holy Spirit came on her, and in the spirit she was in another place. So real kind of, one of those kind of visionary experiences where you're suddenly in a different place, and we need to find out more about that. What did that place look like, and what was her experience of that place? Um, but also, she felt this intense joy descend on her, such that she could not repress it. And I guess that was all the shouting and the flailing around. So a real manifestation of God's glory upon her. And then,
Absolutely.
um, well, why don't you? There's another testimony on that, but she messaged you in the week, didn't she?
Yeah, she messaged me to say that when she came to the UK, her and her family had to pay some money to so that they could receive NHS care if they
Yeah.
needed it while they were here. And because of her circumstances, she felt she was entitled to some refund or partial refund of that, and she had applied for that right back in October,
Yeah.
but heard absolutely nothing back from that. But after she had been given that word on the Sunday, she received a partial refund on the Monday, just completely out of the blue. She, like you say, she wasn't expecting it. So God is faithful, and that word of prophecy came to be for her.
Came to be the very next day.
Yes.
Which
Yeah.
is, yeah. So I'm looking forward to hearing that testimony on Sunday, because that'll be extraordinary. Um, yeah. So there was that, and then this other lady who's a newcomer. So this I think was like her only, I don't know, second or third time, maybe even the second time. She came up to she hung around to talk to me at the end. Um, and she was just bubbling over with what God had done for her the previous week. She had gone up um, for prayer to speak in tongues after first refusing. So, she originally said no, and then thought, why am I saying no? And then gone up, and she doesn't feel she received tongues, but she said, I received something else, which was completely unexpected. And she describes it as acceptance, which is she said, as a person, as a personality, she'd never been able to accept circumstances or setbacks in her life, and she just constantly found herself playing this over in her mind and going over those circumstances and ruminating on on them, and therefore being very much in a very unrestful, dis
Mhm.
place, with no ease or peace. And she said, for the first time, this week had been so different. Um, for the first time, she felt like she was experiencing grace rather than performance, peace rather than turmoil, um, just the ability to live out of a place in God into her life, rather than living out from her own strength and her own effort and her own performance to try and make things happen. And I mean, she was, yeah, expressing I'm living in what the Bible talks about in terms of grace for the first time, and I've never realized how all my life really I've been kind of living out of my own strength. Uh,
Amazing.
yeah,
Yeah. So that was not this Sunday, but the Sunday before, wasn't it? And I spent some time with her again this Sunday. She came and asked me for prayer, and
yeah,
she told me the same as what you've just stated about acceptance. And she said, I'm ready to go beyond that, and I'm ready to receive. But she acknowledged that there were blocks, and she was asking me to pray for wisdom and discernment into what those blocks were. And she's gone off with the intention of spending time with God and hearing from Him and moving forward. She's got that real hunger now, hasn't she, to move on with Him.
And I mean, hunger, absolutely, and I guess expectation.
Yeah.
Which yeah, that's the thing that revival does, doesn't it? Suddenly we have an expectation that God can show up any moment, and there's a kind of an awe and a excitement about that, and a hope, confident hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, she's wanted to do Kingdom First when we start in October. So, guys, if you want to have a real breakthrough in terms of your relationship with the Holy Spirit, I really encourage you to sign up to Kingdom First in October. That will be going live soon, so you can sign up soon. Please do. It's a massive investment into your spiritual growth. By then, of course, we could be in revival. So, God bless you. Thanks for being with us today. Be encouraged on your own journey of Holy Spirit ministry.